I'm Sori.
That's Booby.
And Culpy and Chip.
This
is
is
the True Cult.
The True Cult. This is another Patreon Alliance pick. If you want to be down with the Patreon struggle, you can sign up for $1, and then you get linked up with an alliance, and then you can make your case and get your songs played.
Yep. They all have different ways of how you get your song on the list and stuff. So.
Right. You can hook up with the given leader of said alliances, and they'd give you the breakdown of how it actually goes. Mm-hmm. For timely, topical, political commentary, you can hit us up at Middle America with Vin and Sori.
Or behind the scenes, My Sori Life. And in the description of this video will be the baby registry if anybody's interested in pitching in on that.
You guys are crushing the baby registry. Really appreciate it.
I think that there's 66 items on there, and we have 46 of 66.
Yeah, it's 47 last I checked.
Oh, really? Went up one.
Yeah, so community come through in the clutch.
Yeah.
And we're going to do the baby shower.
Yeah, we're going to do that live with you guys.
So, yeah, and we'll tell you guys like 3 or 4 days ahead, inshallah, when the baby shower is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we should just... I think I put it on the registry somewhere.
Okay.
We got to find that. I'm having trouble finding it, though.
Okay.
We can find it.
So come join us. We'll have a baby registry, baby shower fireside. Speaking of firesides, one's coming up pretty quickly here. I don't know. For sure. I might do one later on tonight. I don't know. Depends.
Depends on how many videos I can knock out.
Sadocked. All right. This is Schammasch. The name of the song is Split My Tongue. If this is a black metal song, I don't know if we're pronouncing that name correctly. So, Damon, hit me up if I'm doing it properly.
Go.
Go.
That's the truth. Death turns all to ash. And thus, death frees every soul.
For sure.
Oh my gosh. Why has this never been requested before? These people are great.
Yeah, I feel bad for this guy though.
Yeah.
But it was a very it was a very well thought out song, lyrically speaking.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, it clearly broke the song in half, and there was definitely a clear progression. What did you like about the song?
Well, first of all, the way that he did those vocals.
Yeah.
Oh man, like he captured he had that dark sound to it, but there was like that desperate sound to it, and that desperate. I think the reason why I like the desperate sound is because it has such a realness to it.
Right.
You know, and I felt like he was really like, it was really coming from deep inside of him, and he was sharing that with us, and I was just like, whoa. And like all of everything, the way that the music came together with it and everything, like it was just so well done. I felt like it was just so excellent. And then obviously, so I don't really know, like, I mean, it just sounded like there was some really tough stuff he's going through in the beginning of the song. And then when the song broke, I love the beginning. I was like, this is getting a very high rating from me. And then the song broke. I'm like, oh no. Like, is it gonna like go down, you know, the rating? And then the second part, I was like even crazier about, because, I mean, to me, obviously, scroll down. That part was, to me, was like a prayer. I don't really know who he's talking to. I don't know what these words mean and stuff. But the unify my tongue, light my eyes, bless my faith, and mend my skin. I don't know. That part was sad because, you know, he had all these marks on him. On his arms and on his chest and stuff, and you could tell that those were...
Well, this right here is the development of this right here. Split my tongue, unify my tongue.
Yeah.
Blind my eyes, light my eyes. Curse my faith, bless my faith. Cut my skin, mend my skin. Wound my flesh, heal my flesh. Soil my blood, purge my blood. So this is...
Infest my mind, fulfill my mind.
Right.
Drown my love.
Shelter my
love.
So it's talking about coming through the other side and wanting that, you know, basically paying the price here in the second verse. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a chiastic structure to some degree of the song, and then this is kind of like the fulcrum, and then there are a lot of psalms that are like this kind of chiastic structure. Crush my bones, burn my face. You know, it's all restore my face, free my hands. So
strengthen my bones.
Yeah, it's all there. It's a clear, you know.
Yeah.
I couldn't really find what he. It seemed like he was so Aleph is the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet, and lucidum, I'm assuming, is something to do with light. That's Latin, and it's got the luci. Prefix, which has to do with light, you know. So like, so the first letter of the Hebrew, you know, like, you know, it's that the Aleph and the Tav is basically Alpha and the Omega. So Aleph is probably the beginning of light, flagellation of the spirit, and Nullantus Dei, which is interesting because when you put it in, it auto corrects it in Google to Voluntas Dei, which is a phrase that's basically you're submitting yourself to God. You know, like Voluntas Dei is like, you know, like a volunteer.
Yeah.
So it's like you're submitting yourself to God. So he replaced the V with an N, which I'm assuming would then turn it into opposition to God in Nullantus Dei. So Aleph Lucidum would be the beginning of light, the flagellation of the spirit in opposition to God, I'm assuming is what that little section means.
Okay.
That's a guess. I don't know, but it seems like that's where he's going with it, you know, and the typical satanic, you know, inversion of what's, you know, Voluntas Dei. The inversion of that would be Nullantus Dei.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, at the end he says, "Deceitful shall be all my words." I know it says all words there, but he said "my" in the song, or at least that's what it sounded like to me.
Well, at the here he says. In the first half of the chiasm, it says, "Deceitful shall be thy words," and then in the last bit, he says, "Deceitful shall be all words."
It sounded like "my," but
well, rewind it.
But maybe it could have been "thy,"
because it's the last lyric that he had, so it might be that. Hold on.
like my.
Yeah.
But then you could also think, well, it could have been thy.
Well, no, it's probably my, because that goes with the progression. Initially, it's deceitful shall be thy words, and then in the second half of the chiasm, it's deceitful shall be my words, because he's now embodied this person. Because it is a prayer, but it's obviously a prayer to Satan.
Wow.
It's obviously that. He's asking Satan to basically turn him into himself. And of course, split my tongue, if you look at the tongue of a snake, you know, it's like, so I think what he's saying is like at the beginning verses, he's asking Satan to do whatever needs to be done, whatever pain I need to go through, whatever, to make me like you, I'm willing to endure it.
Wow.
And then these words are snakes guarding the temple of creation, and dust thou shalt eat all the days of thy life. Which is interesting because that, you know, when God put the cherubim to guard the temple, there are scholars, Michael Heiser obviously being one of them, that believe that these were serpentine creatures.
Right.
And that that when you see the term Nakash talking about the serpent in the garden, that it's actually a serpentine / angelic being.
Yes.
That it wasn't a talking snake, it was a supernatural being that took on that has a serpentine form. And you see this in the A&E all the time, and you see, I mean, those are the throne guardians of the Pharaoh, were these cobras that were, you know, these basically winged cobras that were, you know, whatever. And so, like, there is that idea. So he's right in the sense that they were guarding the temple of creation, because the Garden of Eden, actually, according to G.K. Beale, and I agree with him, was God's first temple.
Right. Because
the temple is a meeting place between God and man, and that's where it was. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the Bible presents the Garden of Eden as being at the top of a mountain of God, and being the temple where gods and men kind of intermingled. And so the communication and intercourse, and I mean intercourse, I mean, you know, actual conversation with angels and with these divine beings was something very common for Adam and Eve, because they were on the mountain of the gods. And so a lot of people don't realize that. Most Christians are probably looking at me like I have 19 heads, but I can prove it.
It's normalized to me now.
Yeah, it's
talked
normalized
about this, but
right.
yeah.
Which is why when the Nakash or the serpent, whatever you want to call him, went to talk to Eve, she didn't go, oh, because it was something that they did all the time.
Yeah.
And they got a lot of wisdom from those folks, I'm assuming. And so, so he's not wrong in saying these words are snakes guarding the temple of creation, and dust thou shalt eat all the days of life. You know what's interesting? I just made a connection that this is the second time I've heard a song, and I made a connection. So Adam and Eve, in God's curse to them, says, dust you are, to dust you shall return.
Yeah.
But then he tells the serpent that you will lick the dust all the days of your life.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it's like you're going to ingest the very death that you caused.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like you're going to be so low that when Adam and Eve are done, all you'll have for food is death. You're going to feast on death, because they return to dust in death.
Yeah.
And then the serpent eats, that's what he sustains himself on in the curse. And so the idea is that you're going to, you know, this is a being that's going to feed on, he's going to be fueled by death. And sure enough, I mean, what do you have? You know, I've come that they may have life, and the enemy has come to steal, kill, and destroy.
Yeah.
And what gives the enemy life, or Satan life, is the death of people, and the destruction of people. Of course, you have Lady Wisdom in Proverbs, and she says she's. It's interesting because Lady Wisdom personifies God. Here's another one that'll make Christians think I'm a heretic, but Lady Wisdom obviously personifies God in the book of Proverbs, but it's a woman, so deal with that, misogynist. But she says, all those who hate me love death.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, there you go.
Do you think there's any significance when he says, and dust thou shalt eat all the days of your life? He didn't say anything about eating to the serpent.
Yeah,
he did?
Yeah, he says you shall lick the dust or eat the dust all the days of thy life.
I just thought that meant because you were like on the ground.
Well, yeah. I agree, but I think it's got such a close proximity to Adam and Eve going back to the dust. And then if you think about it, see right there, dust you are, dust you shall return.
Because he says, curses the ground because of you. He's talking to Adam. Through toil you will eat of it all the days of your life. So I didn't know why he made that.
Here's what he says to the serpent, to the Nakash. On your belly you will go, and dust you will eat all the days of your life.
Okay. I didn't realize.
Which is interesting because everybody got in trouble for eating, right?
Yep.
And so in Genesis 3, the serpent eats dust. Adam still eats the bread of the ground, but he gets it from the sweat of his brow. And all Satan gets is the dust, which is essentially the dead bodies of Adam and Eve. That's what he gets to consume. He just consumes death, which is why, you know, when somebody has a fascination with death and they're always preoccupied with death all the time.
Yeah.
Like that's a sign of satanic influence. For at least for me as a Christian, that's why to some degree I was like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of desperation in what he's saying, but it's very interesting to me, like, he understands, like, a lot of these folks, and I don't know if these guys are theistic Satanists or if they're, you know, Satan is just an idea of rebellion or whatever, but a lot of these folks that take Satan really seriously don't speak about him as if he's like a friend. You know what I mean? Like, it's just split me, crush me, do this, do that. You know, like, he's not out here to try to, like, you know. But then he basically realizes...
Sounds like an abusive relationship.
Right. But this guy realizes that there's a certain type of power that he wants to have. And that he's willing to pay that type of price in order to get that power and, you know, mount this sort of... or embody this sort of resistance toward God.
So strange because Satan can't do those things. Like he can't. Can you scroll to the bottom? Like he can't shelter your love.
Strengthen my bones. See, I disagree with you.
No, I think strengthen my bones. Like he can make you feel powerful. I think that.
Right.
But it shelter your love.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just. Yeah, this guy's fanboying Satan, but I think everything else can happen. Unify my flesh, light my eyes.
Yep.
You know, the scripture says that Satan's messengers come as angels of light. Bless my faith, mend my skin. He can do all that. Heal my flesh, purge my blood. Purge my blood? Probably not. Well, unless it depends on what you think your blood needs to be purged of. You know, if you believe that any sort of weakness or anything that's within you needs to be uprooted and taken from you, then of course you're going to say that.
How do you think light my eyes?
What do you mean?
What do you mean by light my eyes? How can Satan do that?
Well, it says that Satan's ministers operate as angels of light.
Yeah, that to me means he's coming, and he looks like it's a good thing. It's a good deal coming your way, but it's not. But light my eyes to me means like, give me hope in the things that I see around me.
Well, again, if you're, to me, a lot of Satanism, theistic Satanism, seems to be about power. And so if power is your ultimate goal, then Satan can absolutely get that to you. And so if your eyes are brightened by the prospect of having more power, then yeah, he can make that happen. And I also think there's a spiritual type of light that Satan has. That, you know, there's a lot of, we've been in environments where people were, there was a certain light, but it was spooky light. It was we were able to kind of discern, whoa, there's some darkness here. But to an unschooled person, it looks like this is a light, this is a good person, this person is saying a bunch of good spiritual stuff, and the entire time they were consorting with demons, from our perspective. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I think he could do all of that. I think the idea that Satan, you know, we know that the whole pitchfork and he's the Dark Lord and blah 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 all the time is not true. You know, he's an angel of light. He certainly didn't show up to Eve as some dude in a pitchfork and all the rest of it. He's described as Nakash, and Nakash functions as a noun and a verb and an adjective simultaneously, which means the shining one, basically. So I definitely do believe that there's a sort of light that he has. That, but it's dark. But that's where the whole deceptive power comes in, because if you've never there's this one lady, she walked into Martin Lloyd-Jones' church one time, and she said, it was the first time she experienced clean power. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's a pretty crazy way to describe it.
Yep.
Is, people want to deny, because we're so, and even, see, the funny thing is, like, I know right now there's a bunch of atheists going, I cannot believe these people are saying this, they believe in this stuff, da-da-da-da. There's a whole bunch of Christians, there's a whole section of Christianity that would be right there with you, mocking it and making fun of it. And
Oh, yeah, for sure.
that don't believe in demonology and things like that. The issue for me is I've seen it too much. Mm-hmm. So, and I've seen what people were before.
Yeah.
And I've seen what they are after.
Yeah. Do some ministry. Do some visiting people down, deep in the.
Well, there's.
I don't know if it's inappropriate to say slums, but like in some really tough areas, you'll see some shit that'll surprise you.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is that in Maine there's a big emphasis on nature and things like that, and so that's a lot of paganism is about nature. It's not about craziness, So, but it opens doorways. So, I mean, good Lord. Sepulchre of my direction. There it is. Death. Just death. Death. Sepulchre of the will in which I seek abjection. Like, he wants his will completely subsumed to Satan's will.
Wow.
Which is interesting because you have God, right? And God tells us to do the same thing. Like, our will is supposed to be subsumed into God's will. And that's the exercise of prayer, or the discipline of prayer.
Right.
A lot of times is about, being able to get your will aligned with God's will, and then to be strengthened to go forward to if God decides something that you don't like, right? So God does that too, but there's obviously a difference. And I know in my life, for the most part, the way that God has taken my will is just through, Jonathan Edwards' favorite word, which is just plain sweetness. He's just, I'll be bad. I know I'm being bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know that I'm, not right. Like, you're not right. And everybody in the world will tell you you're not right, da-da-da. And then God will show up and just, boom, you get flooded with love. Or boom, something crazy happens. And you, you didn't deserve it and whatever. And it's just God, the whole kindness of God leading you to repentance thing. And a lot of times it's hard to explain if you've never... had it happen to you, but it's heartbreaking in a very beautiful and positive way, and it makes you want to, I'll run through a wall for you.
I was gonna say, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it makes you go, ah. And what's interesting is that the way that God, at least in my life, the way that He has broken my will and whatever has been to look at Jesus on the cross and say to yourself that all this stuff, split my tongue, blind my eyes, cut my skin, wound my flesh, soil my blood, infest my mind, crush my bones, burn my face, nail my hands, break, all those things, clench my all those happened to Jesus. So it's crazy to me, this is what Satan is demanding of this guy in order to turn him into him, and in order to break his will or whatever, and Jesus basically says, no, you do that to me, and I'm going to love you unconditionally.
Wow.
And when you absorb that type of love and you really are convinced of it, because there's a difference between, hearing God loves you and blah, 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 but, where those moments happen where, Paul talks about God pouring his love into our hearts through the Holy Spirit. And he says all those things to you. His hands were nailed and his voice was choked and all this, and his heart was literally torn to shreds, and literally the guy put the spear between his ribs and the sack and all that jazz. And that's knowing that and dwelling on that is what breaks you, because of the unconditional love of God. At least for me, the whole you're going to hell and blah 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 doesn't really work to do a lot of change in my life. But the fact that that God would be willing to do that for me changes.
I think it was the same thing for me.
And so it's just crazy to me. Whereas here we have is you've got to pay a certain type of price to to be made like me, right? And you're like, you have to do something to get to this level. Whereas, you know, Christianity is like, it's the only religion where it's like, you can't do anything for yourself. Not even that. God has to do everything for you, and your role is to accept it and live in the light of it.
Which can be difficult.
Well, yeah, if you don't understand the concept of love, which most of us don't, if you don't understand the concept of love, it's very hard. But if you get it, then it's you go, oh, oh, okay. Well then, all right, I'm here. I had a guy, the big homie, Jim Beach. He basically, we were talking about our conversions or whatever, and I wish he's another one I wish you could have met. Always smiling. He had the nur, the light, looked crazy, and
so much good stuff about him.
And he just said, well, the preacher said that he wanted me, so I said, well, here I am. And it was that simple. And subhanAllah, he was just, it was unbelievable.
Wanted him what? When he, what for
he
what?
just heard the pastor just said an offhanded comment, God wants you.
Oh.
And that hit him.
Oh, that's so cute.
And then he said,
Yeah.
He said, oh, well, here I am.
Aww.
And that was it. He was him and Jesus for the rest of his life. It's just that simple.
It's interesting because there's so many people that will say, God wouldn't want me because of this or that thing, if I've done too much or whatever, there's no way he would want me.
Yeah.
Which it's not true. Like God does want you. So it's cute that he was, when he heard that, he was like, oh, okay.
Oh, he was just very, don't get me wrong, he was up there in age, he was very mature, but he was extremely childlike. Extremely childlike in his Christianity. Just the childlikeness that Jesus says you have to be like to enter the kingdom, not the childishness that we're told to grow up out of, but the childlikeness that makes you just believe it. You just read it and believe it. That was it.
That's cute.
It's just it. Oh, you want me? Okay. It's like easy for you to say, Jim. You're a very good. See, I hadn't like. It's almost like a second conversion, really, for a lot of religious people. Not really, like when people come out of like darkness and dirt and grime and gangsterism and Satanism or whatever, like they get it a lot quicker. But people that come out of religion like need a second conversion. It's like you're still in process. You know what I mean? Like it's a hard thing to accept. Unconditional love is a very, very hard thing to accept. And I actually think it's impossible without supernatural intervention.
I would agree with that.
And so God had pity on me. He knew that you were stronger than me, so you could walk around with your works righteousness. I can't do it.
Gosh.
I just can't do it. I just can't do it. What did you give the song?
Oh, it's a 10.
I felt sorry for the big homie because I was like, man, I wish. But it's one of those things I wish people could experience it for like 3 seconds, and I don't know how to say that without sounding condescending and crazy. But you know, like I wish people could, and that's of all the mysteries. Like, and I've seen terrible things, and terrible things have happened, and all, you know, I've been able to. I'm at peace with pretty much all of them. But of all the things, that's what I question. Like, because it happens so much and so often to me. And then I see you, we'll have conversations, and you'll be crying. I'm like, just do the thing with her. Like, you know what I mean? Just like, or when we're talking to Low Speller, shout out to the big homie. Like, it's just like, man, like she wasn't saying, screw, I hate God, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's like,
wasn't.
She wasn't, you know, I don't know. So, anyway, I pray for the big homie. Hopefully, although, you know, I've got a friend who's I'm not going to name the individual, but God's absolutely working and speaking to her, and she's an atheist, but and I didn't say anything, like you know what happened or whatever, and she's like, don't read too much into it. I'm like, hey sis, I'm not saying nothing, but it's like it's obvious. And I'm like, oh, okay, you did it, you know, but I don't know why he doesn't do that with everybody else. I don't know, but maybe I should pray for you too, so you can. Who knows? All right, it's a 9.4 for me. I like how they went to like traditional tremolo picking in the second half of the song too.
Why wasn't it a 10?
I don't know. There's no rhyme or reason. It's just not a 10 for me. That's all.
Definitely a 10 for me. All right.
Vin out.
Sori out.
Gone.